and good morning. Thank you for joining us here today with Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. I'm Lynaae with Forbes Realty Group. I am the broker and owner, and I'm considered a small business because I have myself and one agent, which is my husband. And so today I have invited on our show, my guest today is Susie Smith. Actually, it's Susan Smith. I know her as Susie. I'm sorry. We fall into the little habits of what we call each other.
Yep, which everybody knows me as Susie Smith, so
okay.
That's fine.
Okay. And Susan, you are part of, explain a little bit, what's your title and
Okay.
what do you do?
Well, I am a Legal Shield Independent Associate, and I'm actually a small business specialist in the business solution side of Legal Shield in that division.
Okay, and that's why we have her here today, because not only does real estate, affect people in their lives, a lot of small business owners work from home, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And sometimes we get ourselves in a little bit of, trouble. And this is why I brought Susie on today is, first of all, I wanted to get her story. So always great to have a backstory of why you came, where you came from, and what you're doing, and how you got to where you got. Because I always talk about being from the foster care system, me being wanting to help people get into homes. Okay, that because I lacked that as a child.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about your story and how you got into Legal Shield.
Okay. And as you mentioned, a lot of times something has to be challenging in your life in order to get you to a different place in your life. And that's kind of my story. I actually have an engineering background.
Wow.
And I quit that career to stay home with my 4 amazing children.
Okay.
And we had a family business. When I was pregnant with my 3rd son, my brother-in-law had a mat manufacturing business.
Okay.
And so I worked with him in that business, and we were doing great. Thriving business here in town.
What year was that?
That was in '96.
Okay.
Okay. And I live in Boulder City, so we had a warehouse in Boulder City. I could do all my work at 2 in the morning. It didn't
anytime
matter.
you wanted.
Yeah. So I
24/7.
did the artwork for the mats, and basically my priority was always my children, and he pretty much ran the business. And in 2003, we invested in the business with him, bought a huge $250,000 printer to print on carpet. I could print a photograph on carpet. It was pretty amazing.
So when you talk about mats, these are the mats like when you walk in the door of someone's business and it has their business logo on it.
Yes, like most banks have them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we would be able to print their logo. So my job was somebody would give me their artwork, and I would make that artwork work on carpet.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun. And my brother-in-law was our salesperson. He was the face of the business. I was the background of the
Okay.
business, which was perfectly fine with me.
Okay. Well, especially with children, because
Yes,
you never know when they're going to get sick.
Well-
You don't know when they're going to have a need. Oh, Mom, I need those cupcakes I promised at school yesterday.
Yes, and you know how that goes. I was that annoying mom that volunteered for everything.
Oh, goodness.
My kids used to say, Mom, you go on more field trips than we do, which I think was true. So it was perfect.
Well, so
And
you're a self-made networker then, if you're doing all that.
yeah, I networked in that with anybody that was under 10, pretty much.
Well, but under 10 and then mom and dad.
Yeah, the volunteering. Yeah, that I fell into. I didn't realize that until I really got involved with the kids. But my favorite thing to do is volunteer.
Okay.
Volunteer to help in any way that I can. I ended up, you find yourself as suddenly the meet director of the swim team, and
Right.
all of these different things that just because you're open to helping out, and they
Now,
need
how
help.
old are your kids now?
26, 25. And then 19. Those are my 3 boys, and then I have a daughter that's 17.
Oh, wow.
So she's the only
Ooh.
girl. She's the only one still at home. Everybody's flown the coop
Flown the coop.
by now.
Oh, my goodness.
So yeah.
Well, I've got a 16-year-old son, so I understand.
Yeah.
And he'll be 17 this year sometime later. But
Right.
okay, so you got into volunteering with the different events for the children, and boy, that's a lot of going on, and all of a sudden all the children flew the coop, and what happened to the
what
business?
happened is in 2000, when the same thing that kind of happened to a lot of businesses when 2008, 2009, when the economy fell apart, we had a huge relationship with the home builders here in town. Yeah, and so they just disappeared, and so we just started struggling, and businesses were not interested in buying mats when they couldn't keep their, paying. They were trying to pay their rent, and so we did not network as a business. I didn't know about chambers. We didn't do that. We just didn't know about that
So
stuff.
unfortunately, you guys kind of got stuck.
We got stuck, yeah.
And then when the business went away, you didn't have a backup.
No, and we didn't change with the times. I think the times really changed around those couple years of, instead of just going and the old way of just putting your name in the phone book and knocking on doors, changed to really networking and building relationships. And my brother-in-law had a lot of relationships, but they were all to those home builders. And so what happened is he had a friend that had a mat company in Tennessee. Did exactly what we did, but didn't have the equipment that we had. So it was like a perfect fit. They had a huge facility in Tennessee. They had employees. They were actually doing well. So we said, okay, well, we'll take our equipment and we'll ship it up to Tennessee and put it in your facility, and we'll join forces. And so that's what we did. We took our huge $250,000 machine, put it up there. My brother-in-law stayed up there a couple of months and made sure everything was working good. He came back here. I got to just continue to do what I was doing, and he was, selling not just our stuff, but their stuff. About 4 months into it, they said, we changed our mind. We don't want to partner with you. You can have all your equipment back. You just can't come on our property.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so we found ourselves in a bit of a situation.
That's called a legal situation.
Yeah, and we thought, okay, we called the police, and they're like, well, you put it there. And so, and we don't know if they planned it all along. They may have, but my husband thinks they had it all planned. I'm not sure if they were that diabolical, but basically they knew that we didn't have the resources to sue them. We couldn't afford to sue them, and they were absolutely right. That's what was going to happen.
So basically, they stole your $250,000 machine,
which we owed about $50,000 on at that point, and that loan was attached to our houses. So we had a mess, and we couldn't make a mat anymore. So the business was over. So and then I got sued personally for a credit line that the business had out that I had never signed for. We were a corporation, and I didn't sign for this, but they personally sued me for a $90,000 credit line. So we were in a huge. Just found ourselves. We had one in college, one going to college. Thought we had everything under control into this gigantic mess.
And then and add to that we're already going into a spiral in the housing here in Las Vegas. So you guys had this stuff attached to your homes, unfortunately. And so what happened?
Well, we kind of got caught into the whole trying to downsize at the wrong time. Wish I'd have known you back then. Really wish I had known you back then, because we didn't know. And we were trying to downsize. And anyway, we ended up paying 2 mortgages for 6 years, trying to get out of that. But my husband, we did what most people do when you find yourself needing an attorney, because we didn't know any attorneys, and we're like, okay, who are we going to call, and how much is this going to cost?
Right.
So when I got sued, we needed an attorney. We knew that. So my husband took a day off work, and I lined up 7 different free consultations with attorneys, just trying to find the right one.
Right.
They all basically just told us, you're going to have to file bankruptcy and lose everything. There's nothing you can do. But they didn't really tell us what that meant. So so it wasn't really advice, which I understand that attorneys need, the only way they make money is by their hourly, by the hourly fees. So we liked one of them really a lot. My husband liked him, so we hired him, gave him a huge retainer, and unfortunately we didn't pick correctly because he was too busy for us, and I never got to talk to him again. I only could talk to his assistant. And so sometimes that's the other problem when you're looking for an attorney. How do you find that right one? And then when you find somebody and you give them a retainer, what happens if that attorney happens to not be the right one? How do you can't get your retainer back? And so we just were in a mess. And so I had met somebody with with my company at a networking event.
Legal Shield.
Yes, and I went to them, and we got the service, and Legal Shield was able to help us tremendously. They got our equipment because they're nationwide.
Right.
So they have
They got your equipment back?
Yes, they have a provider law firm in every state. So basically the provider law firm in Tennessee had an attorney call us. He filed something called a writ of possession here in Nevada, which we would not have known to do that.
And nobody else here that you talked to came up with that?
Didn't. Yeah, we didn't talk to the right attorneys. And
it's not always about the right attorneys. I'm gonna step in here for a second. It's not always about the right attorneys. What is the attorney's end game?
Right.
Okay, and if you can figure that out, I think it's just like real estate. If you can figure out what that real estate agent's end game is, if it's about the commission, you don't have the right agent in place.
Right.
If it's about the hourly fee, it's not the right attorney. So when they didn't give you the proper information about that other state, it's because they didn't have a source in Tennessee
Right.
that helped you facilitate that.
Right, and unfortunately, it kind of just felt like the other attorneys that we met were just trying to decide if we could afford to hire them to do a bankruptcy, is what it kind of felt like. And
They
why?
wanted the shortcut. See, there's
Yeah.
so many times that people are looking for the shortcut, and that's not the right thing. And when you said you wish you had met me, I would have probably been a lot more supportive. And one of the things that I endeavor to do is to constantly be knowledgeable and giving my clients the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And you weren't asking the right questions.
Right, and how would I even know what those were?
You don't.
Because I'm not an attorney. So
Exactly.
I didn't know. And why the Legal Shield services are so amazing is because the attorneys, you have a provider law firm, and that provider law firm, you pay a small monthly fee. It's really that law firm, their whole purpose is to help you because they're
It's like
already
an
paid.
insurance program.
Yeah, they're already paid. So their whole purpose is just to help you. And as a member of Legal Shield, when I called the law firm, I was talking to 3 attorneys here in Nevada because I had different issues. So I needed different types of attorneys. And that phone advice, I could call them 3 times a day, 5 times a day.
So you got the
it didn't matter.
equipment. You got the equipment back. Did you
Yes.
have to file bankruptcy?
No. So
that's
that
great.
writ of possession that he filed, now we paid a retainer to have him file that writ of possession because
Okay.
that wasn't included in the membership. But it was a lot less expensive than because you always get a discount with Legal Shield. But again, we would have never known to do that. So it was a very small retainer that we paid to have him do that. And then that meant that they were going to have to come to Nevada and fight us. And he said they're not going to do that because then they're going to have to hire an attorney in Nevada, those people. And he was absolutely right. So as
And
soon
so
as
did they
we
pay you, or did they give you your equipment back?
we got our equipment back and we sold it.
Okay.
We ended up selling it. And then the attorney that we had here in Vegas, amazing attorney through our Legal Shield membership, and she was able to get that lawsuit down to an $8,000 payoff.
Good.
Because
That's in
she's
negotiations.
brilliant. Yes. And so we paid that off, and then the last part was our house. And you know how difficult that can be because it was already in foreclosure at this point. So the attorney that I had, and the cool part is that when you call about the same matter, you get the same attorney. So every time I called about the house, I got the same attorney. So we talk to each other
Gosh,
every day.
now-
Every day.
We're going to go into a break because this just leads right into something that
Okay,
that I'm a proponent for. But okay, real estate know-how with Lynaae. Sorry, I'm so excited. I'm Lynaae with Forbes Realty Group, broker owner, and we're going to be back just around the bend. And good morning, and welcome back to Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. And I'm Lynaae with Forbes Realty Group, broker owner and realtor here in Las Vegas. And today I have a guest in, Susan Smith. I like to call her Susie.
And that's perfectly fine.
With Legal Shield. And what is your title again?
I am a Legal Shield independent associate.
Okay.
And I specialize in the small business division of Legal Shield.
Okay.
So.
So before we hit the break on our first segment, we were talking about foreclosure. Now I'm gonna do a little recap on foreclosures and what happened in here in Las Vegas. A real quick one is that in 2010, mediation became available for people who were being foreclosed on because banks were unrelenting, unforgiving, and unhuman, and they were doing things to people, providing false documents, providing no documents, and still being able to foreclose on people's homes. And then in 2000, I think it was just 2013, and give or take, we had a new law come in place that then required certain notifications by the banks. And all of a sudden, the playing field got changed, and the banks had to go through certain protocols in order to foreclose on people's properties. However, they didn't. The Senate and the House and all those people up in Carson City didn't get one of the things that was happening. And that was what we call dual tracking. All that means is that while the bank was in a short sale agreement with you, they could actually start the foreclosure process, and then at the end of it was like a race of the tortoise and the hare. We were racing many times with our short sale approvals, racing the foreclosure dates. And so they went back again and changed the law again. And this time they said, now banks, you have to play fair. You can no longer dual track clients. And that started, I think, about 2 years ago. And that, again, it was October of 2015, I believe, or 2014. Again, changing the landscape of how foreclosures were done. But the first time that first law came in, all of a sudden the entire real estate market just went to a standstill. And when I say a standstill, literally the summer that happened, we had 3 weeks of inventory, and all of a sudden we called them oh gosh, those guys on Wall Street, hedge funds. Okay. They came in, they started purchasing properties left and right, paying cash. All of a sudden, I couldn't even take a buyer out.
Oh my goodness.
Because my buyer was competing with this hedge fund cash. Yeah. Okay, now get this. Now the repercussion of this actually stayed for a long time. It's kind of like the water, the raindrop hitting the water, and that keeps going and going and going. The repercussion was that all of a sudden those guys left the market, and they had pushed up our pricing. And all of a sudden, the short sale banks that I was dealing with, because I had several short sales, decided they were entitled to get those prices that those hedge funds guys were paying, but weren't getting anymore. So I had several sales. I actually closed 2 this year that I had 2.5 years.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Because when we got caught up in that market, yeah, these guys came in, made their offers, the bank came back, they said no, and they walked away from the deal.
Right.
And now I'm sitting here with a property that the bank thinks they're still entitled to this full price offer that they got in the beginning, yeah, but they got selfish. I had one particular property where the hedge fund came in, offered to pay the $18,000 HOA lien, because we're still dealing with the HOAs at that point.
Right.
Not as much now, but we were still dealing with that, them foreclosing. We were dealing with the fact that the property values were being pushed up. The bank walked away because they insisted on getting an additional $7,000 from that buyer.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, now the buyer was buying at 141, 18,000. They wanted 7,000 more. In the end, I wound up selling that property, and the bank had to pay the 18,000 for 138,000. Do you think maybe they made a mistake?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know. I'm not really good at math, but that was not a problem for me to figure out, that the bank just walked away from $18,000.
Right. And it was like there wasn't a human factor involved when I was trying to deal with it. And I won't say who the bank was that had the mortgage for our house. But
and that's good. We don't want to do that.
No, but we were getting information from 2 different departments of that bank. I mean, I was getting stacks of mail like this,
and that's
different information.
That was the biggest problem, is that they were splitting people in half in a sense. You were dealing with the foreclosure department and the short sale department, and neither one was. It was like dealing with Walgreens and CVS. They don't talk to each other. They're competitors, and that's exactly what the banks had created, and what the Carson City changed in 2014, but gosh, they took a long time to change that, didn't they?
Yeah, they took a long time. It was like a year, and all we wanted to do was get back on track. We weren't asking for anything spectacular. Just once we got the lawsuit taken care of, you
didn't want to lose your home.
And we sold the big house, so now we're like, we wanted to get back track on the little house, which was the one that was really upside down, but it had an acre of property in Boulder City, which is hard to find, and that was
didn't
something.
Want to lose that.
And my husband was very emotionally attached to that house, so it might not have been like the most best financial decision, but emotionally that was what he wanted to do.
And that's what that brings into some other things that we talk about when we get into real estate is that why do you need a real estate agent? Because you need to take the emotional factor out, and you can't negotiate when you're emotionally involved with that property, be it a seller or a buyer.
Right.
Oh my gosh, when a buyer walks in and there's sellers are sitting in the house, it's all I can do to contain them, because I don't want to give away my position when I go to negotiate on their behalf.
Right.
We got to be willing to show that we can walk away. And if we can't do that, then the seller then is in the position to say no. or push that
Right.
that can. So I don't like showing houses with the seller in the house, and I always encourage my own sellers to always leave or vacate the property.
Right.
But the big thing that you're talking about here is that your husband was emotionally involved, and so we forget that during this crisis, and it was truly a crisis because people were emotionally involved with their homes. They were, kids were raised there. They may have gotten it from a parent. They may have gotten money from the parent to buy it, for gosh sakes.
Right.
All these are factors that play into real estate. So we're not the business people like those hedge fund guys that just came in and basically annihilated our one
Right.
summer, with 3 weeks of inventory. Oh my gosh, that was a bad summer.
Right.
I'll never forget that. Because I actually had buyers coming in and talking to me, and I was like, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I can't do this to you and then have you come back and say you didn't tell me.
Yeah, which is wonderful that you do that.
But I look at it as if I was going to do that, would I want someone else to tell me? And,
Right.
And that's the difference between, and when we're looking for attorneys and when we're looking for real estate agents, be it even an insurance agent, you would rather have one who's more about educating you than who's ready to sell you a policy. If they've educated you correctly, you're going to get the policy. You may not get all of them at one time because sometimes people take time to make changes.
Right, right.
So you went to Tennessee. You got your equipment.
We got the equipment back.
You sold it.
We sold it.
Now you had to deal with the banks here, and now you still have legal shield in place.
Yeah, my membership. Yeah, because we actually there's a Legal Shield has a membership for business owners, and they have a membership for personal. So we also had the personal plan. So the personal plan is what was helping me with the
connecting you now
and-
at this point with your personal home.
Yeah, so I could call my attorney every day, every time I got something in the mail, and just say, "Oh my gosh, what is this? What do I do with this? I don't know what to do."
And that reminds
kept
me
it just kept me in front of he kept me in front of the paperwork and helped me not to give up, because I would have given up without some sort of advice.
And
through
see,
the
that's
whole
the thing that I was, when we were going to break, that you had actually clicked in onto this, and this is why I was talking about the dual tracking or dual, things going on. Because one of the things that appears that Legal Shield does for you is that when they set you up with an attorney, they really work to keep you with the same one, so you don't have to keep retelling your story.
Correct. As soon as you have an attorney that's working with you on a certain matter, when you call back into the law firm, you're going to always get that same attorney to help you with that matter.
And
So
unlike
I became very good friends with my attorney over the phone.
Well, and unlike the crisis with what was happening with the mortgage business and all these foreclosures, that was not what you got when you went and talked to the bank. Obviously, every time you called in, you had to start all over as if you never talked to the bank.
And I had just started networking at that time, because and just to make sure that people understand, I'm just telling you my own experiences with the
And that's
membership.
fine.
I'm not a spokesperson for Legal Shield in any way. It's just that because of my experiences with the membership, I decided that I really needed to let people know that this existed, and that's why I decided to become
Be a
an
representative.
become an independent contractor with them, just to let people know. But I started doing a lot of networking at that time, and there's not as many. There's a lot of real estate agents that aren't necessarily as knowledgeable as you.
Thank you.
That network, and they would stand up and say these things, and I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing. That's probably something that could help us. So then I'd go home and I'd call my attorney, and I'd say, hey, I heard about this program. And he's like, no, I'm sorry, that's not going to work, or that's not going to help you, or that's not necessary.
And I actually ran into the same thing. As a matter of fact, what would happen is I'd take notes, and then I'd go on the internet and go research it, and I'm going, where the hell did they come up with that? Sorry. Where did they come up with that story?
Right. So it's very important that you have a real estate agent that knows what they're doing and can tell you where they found the information and why it would work for you, and not just say a blanket statement because it gets people's hopes up.
It does.
That there's an answer for them when really there isn't.
Well, I don't like those billboards that say, hey, we're going to short sell your house and then you get to buy it back. I'm going to ask you one question.
Oh, I saw that.
If you failed the bank the first time, do you think another bank is going to come in and give you a loan on a property that you just took, another bank just took a huge loss on?
Right.
Ding, 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 ding. I don't think so. I would never do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about the non-emotional part of this. The banks are going to look at the paperwork and go, we're going to give you a loan, but you can't do it on the property that somebody already took a loss on for you.
Yeah, so there's even commercials that say that now.
I know, but I don't know how they do that.
Yeah,
And there's nothing. What I don't like is that they don't have that backup. Here's people we've done it for. Here's people who've actually got financing. What I have seen though is these programs actually take advantage of the emotional factor. And what they do is they get you to sign on. The house goes into this corporation's name.
Okay.
Then you lease back the property with the hopes of buying it.
Oh, wow.
Now, the problem with that is usually that's not an advantage to the borrower or the homeowner.
Okay.
Okay, it's all about them. It's all about the money they want to make, and the payment sometimes is actually quite unreasonable. You'd be better off to go rent another property, and just move out and break your ties.
Yeah.
Start over. You know, that's what bankruptcy is about, and sometimes you just have to look at foreclosure as the same way.
Right.
And don't get emotionally. Once that starts processing, you need to then sit down like you and your husband did. You did get rid of a property, and you did downsize, and now you're going, and you knew that there was value, because that's one thing that you can't make is land.
Right.
You knew that there was value. So even though there was an emotional factor in there, you still had a very viable reason to keep the land.
There's not going to ever be anything behind us. So we're always going to have an amazing view. So someday, if we decide to leave Boulder City, somebody's going to want that. I feel like, somebody's going to want that property.
And I think you were smart in doing that. So, let's take it, adding up all the chips on both sides of the equation here. You have a great program that helped you with finding the right attorney. Mm-hmm. You had a great end game where you knew that you wanted to keep the property because of the land, because that's something we can't make more of.
Right.
We can make more houses, but we can't make more land.
Right, you can't, you know how Boulder City is. So.
Yes, and that's a very close community. As a matter of fact,
it's a wonderful place, by the way.
Yeah, but I've never been able to get in there as a real estate agent, because it is tight with the real estate agents there. So if I ever got in, it would be a blessing.
Right.
But that said, so we're gonna go to break. Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. My guest today is Susie Smith with Legal Shield, and you're an independent rep.
Yep.
Independent
Legal Shield Independent Associate is my proper title.
Okay, and we'll see you around the bend. And good morning, and welcome back, Lynaae. Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. I'm Lynaae Forbes with Forbes Realty Group. I am the broker and owner, and today in our studio as a guest, Susie Smith with Legal Shield.
Hello.
And what is your title again?
Legal Shield Independent Associate.
Okay. We want to make sure we keep that on track, because it's not today. She's here to share her story, and I think it really does. It fits in with what I do, and that's why this is a great story to tell, because often what we find in real estate, and you've seen this now, and it's always always warms my heart, or whatever you want to call it. It makes me teary when someone walks up to me and says, I've talked to 5 real estate agents, but you were the only one that asked me this question.
Very good, yes.
And the question was, to not necessarily sell their home. Mm-hmm. I've had several people who considered, going through short sale. I had one client in particular. She talked to 5 of us, and the first 4 were, well, you have too many dogs. We can't get you moved into this rental. And I'm looking at them going, why are you moving to a rental? And they looked at me and they go, well, because we just filed for bankruptcy and our home was included. And I said, great, stay. And they go, look at me and they go, why? And I go, because why would you go pay rent when you've got, while you're in bankruptcy, the bank can't do anything. And even if they do get the right to do something, they don't. And by this point, laws had changed, and I said, and if they do anything, they have they have a strict protocol now. So why would you go run off and go rent a house? And I said, and the fact is, you got 4 dogs, and they're big dogs, they're not small dogs, and Clark County only allows 3 in rentals, and technically 3 in your homes unless you have a breeder's license.
I just heard that. I never knew that until just like a week ago. So
okay, so I told the client, I said, I sat down with them and I said, see, what bankruptcy does for you when it comes to if you have to short sell your property,
right,
is that they can't require your bank statements, your tax returns, your hardship letter, or your payroll. Because why? because this deficiency now has been included on your bankruptcy against you. However, the loan, the lien, still stays with the house. That means that we can short sell or they can foreclose.
Okay.
But because of the new rules, even though you filed for bankruptcy, they're tending now to follow more. They've been sticking closer to the rules of protocol.
Okay.
And that is, you can't dual track. You've got, if you start a conversation with them, you can't go start, foreclosure if you're talking to them about a short sale.
Right. Okay.
And so I guess what brings to why you are here today is it just helps me give my story out of how important it is to ask the right questions. And sometimes it's not, I've always said to my son, I homeschool him, and I always said to him, it's not about what you know, it's how you find out what you need to know. Because we don't need to be a know-it-all, we need to know where to find it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I born and raised here in Vegas, and my father owned a couple of paint stores here in town, and he's sold them like 30 years ago. But he did very well. He has a wonderful retirement. He's still here in Vegas. And what I realized after I started having my, working with my own business and I started networking is you need resources. One thing that we made a big mistake is we tried to do everything ourselves. We thought, we could save money by, doing our own taxes and being our own real estate agent and doing all these things. And what my dad did is he networked, in his own way back in the day, which was through fishing and hunting and, and things like
and
that.
Golfing.
Playing golfing and playing cards. And I realized that when I was growing up, everyone that came to our house to play cards, his accountant, his insurance guy, his attorney, they were his best friends. They all went hunting together, they all raced together, they all did those things, but it didn't really dawn on me until I thought about who his friends were. And they were all these people, because he knows paint. He didn't know all those other things. So he said, I'm not smart. I surround myself with smart people. And I'm like, man, you are so smart.
and so that was kind of a conundrum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Quandary there. Ooh. But yeah, I think that's important. And today bringing you to talk with me actually helps us educate people about myself and about what you and I do and how you and I've met. And it's been a long relationship, I would say.
Quite a while ago.
It's been
just through networking.
I think it was in 2011, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
It had to been, because that's when I first started. So, so we talk about the education process, and what I've enjoyed about talking to most people is going through that education. I first and foremost think that educating my clients and educating people like you about what I do and how I do it makes it a lot easier for you to send me business.
Absolutely.
And the same goes for you. If I've come across someone where this is a fit, obviously I'm going to send them to your direction so that you can educate them about Legal Shield, the pros and the cons, the benefits, the non-benefits, whatever that may be. But I was in a class for real estate brokers class since I became a broker. I have to do all these.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I have to do all these broker classes. And this broker actually talked about having Legal Shield in place.
Oh, really?
For his office.
Wonderful.
And he said, we're real estate agents. We're not supposed to practice law. We're supposed to help our clients ask the right questions. We're not supposed to advise them. But it's like, I always say, most people, when you look at an agent, you go, so what's vesting? And you look at them really quick, because they're going to look like deer in the headlights, because they're going to go, I can't do that. I'm going to correct you. You need to know what each of those vestings are. However, you cannot advise your client which one to pick.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And my whole purpose when I sit down with somebody is I just want them to know there's an option. It's just all about education, and there's choices in this life.
So let me give you a good example.
There's an option.
Right. So here's what I tell people. I'm from Washington State. Okay. I'm from the apple capital of the world, and we got Granny Smith apples and we got Golden Delicious apples. And if I take and explain each of these apples and I outline which ones, what their attributes are, what's good about them. Okay, so we know the Granny Smith is a little bit on the green side, a little bit sour, and we know the Golden Delicious, oh my gosh, I think the words tell itself. You cut into it, it's just, oh my gosh,
it's making me hungry.
That apple is freaking delicious. Okay? Now, if I asked you which one would you bake into a pie, do you think maybe you could figure it out without me ever advising you?
Right, right.
Okay,
Just by education.
that's my job, is to explain community property with rights of survivorship, joint tenants and tenants in common. What are the difference? Every real estate agent should be able to explain those differences. If they've done it right, that client should be able to pick up the phone, ask their attorney, and their attorney go, yes, that's the right one, without them explaining it and having to pay for it.
And I also found through networking there are amazing attorneys in this town. You just so the main thing with business owners is make sure that you have an attorney that you can talk to, but make sure that you find that attorney through your network. So through somebody you know, through a referral, through a chamber, something to where you're getting you get somebody else that. So just make sure you find it through. Don't Google it or
because
go for the billboard. Just make sure somebody else has used that attorney.
Know and trust.
Yes, because there's amazing. I network with a lot of attorneys, and there's some really good ones in this town. Really, really good ones. So.
Well, that's what networking's all about. And if an attorney is worth their fee, it's going to come back. And I think that's what happens with me when I'm out there talking about real estate and I explain what the reverse mortgage for purchases and the grant money that's available and why FHA has its positives and negatives and how do we help our vets get in there with there's a HEROES program with these grant programs that actually, if we can get the seller to pay their closing costs, would reduce their interest rates.
Oh, wow.
Just little things like that
you wouldn't know.
And then why do agents push against not taking a vet out and showing them properties, even those that say no, they won't consider VA? The way I look at it is this: figure out what VA will allow. VA allows the borrower, which is the vet, to pay the transfer tax and the owner's policy of title, which is traditionally paid by our seller.
Okay.
Well, then the seller has to pay the 1% origination fee, and that's where everybody goes, oh my gosh, they have to pay more money. And I'm like, no, you just trade fees.
Okay.
Now you've evened the playing field for the FHA and conventional person who's going to come in and compete against your VA buyer. Now your seller is not in a quandary and now doesn't turn away that VA purchaser. But again, it's all about being educated.
Yeah.
Why aren't we seeing more real estate agents doing the reverse for purchase? Why would you allow your borrower to tie up all of their cash or create a loan going into their golden years when we have a tool, an instrument that gives them the ability not to have a house payment?
For the reverse, is it called, what's it called?
Is it reverse for purchase or the reverse mortgage if they decide to refi after they've had a forward mortgage?
And I think people just don't understand that.
They don't, and they look at it from the old days, and this again about bad education.
Right.
The old days, that was a bad program.
Right.
The way it was just like the banks foreclosing. Till the rules were changed to play fair. No, they weren't fair in the beginning.
Right.
They did take people's houses and they did take people's estates. But now these are set up in such a way that there's a lot of equity left in there, except for those that got them in 2004, 5, and 6. Because they may still be upside down, but that's irrelevant. Because I do reverse mortgage short sales as well.
Oh, wow.
And I know how to do those.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's
must
not
be complicated.
Not actually. It's actually quite easy.
Really?
But don't tell anybody.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Education. All right, you're constantly out there educating about attorneys, what to look for, how to talk to them, etc., because of your personal experience, because of what you do for a living. You're
just being proactive. We just want people to be proactive in every aspect of their life and their business, and ask questions. Just don't, anytime you have that feeling of, can they do that? Then you should be trying to find someone that is educated in that area and ask the questions. Find an expert in that area.
So what
and
I'd say is
that
if you're paying for insurance, why wouldn't you pay for like a kind of an insurance program on your business to help you with your legal problems? It's kind of like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's now we can't call it that.
I know,
but it's
not
insurance.
But it's not.
Definitely not insurance. But the premise is, it's a membership.
Okay, but you have availability because of this membership.
You have buying power.
Okay,
I guess.
And that's kind of what the Realtor Board gives us as real estate agents is buying power. We've been able to stave off a bunch of things, whereas when this meltdown happened, the mortgage loan officers just got taken to the bank, basically. They got dressed down, blamed, etc., and when it wasn't all of their fault.
Right.
I will be the first person to say that you can't blame it all on one party. You can't blame it on the loan officers, you can't blame it on the banks, you can't blame it on the buyers, the sellers, and the real estate agents. However, when the bank puts out a carrot so big that the loan officer goes, oh my gosh, and gets a little greedy, and then you bring in all these other parties, yeah, you're going to have a little problem there.
Right.
And that's what they went in and went after, was that.
Right.
Because you were getting the option arm, which was never intended for the homeowner. It was intended for the guy that was buying the property to rent it out.
Okay.
Because the option payment gave them an option that when they didn't have a rent payment coming in, they could actually pay a lesser payment.
Oh my gosh.
Don't give that to the homeowner.
Right.
That was never intended for the homeowner. That program is part of the problem that brought us into here in Nevada to our little spin down.
Yeah.
Because those were the first mortgages basically to start failing. Because when people paid those little mortgage payments, the difference between that and the interest only payment, that interest, let's just call it $1,000 worth of interest, and that option payment was $500. Where did the $500 that they didn't pay on their interest go?
Yeah.
It was deferred. So if you had a $200,000 loan, now you have a $200,500 of a loan. You do that month after month. What do you think you've created?
Yeah, a bubble or whatever, a mess.
You've created a very big monster.
Yeah.
Okay, those were the first ones to go.
Oh, okay.
And so then it just tumbled from there like the domino effect, and everybody got caught in it. And even the prime, because those were considered subprime, even the prime loans were actually, I sold a house that was bought in 2008 for $800,000, or it was $900,000. My client then bought it in 2008 for $400,000, and in 2012 I sold it for $232,000.
So it started at
over $900,000.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Okay, so do you see where this whole thing, and they were qualified for a loan, and we wound up short. It got foreclosed the first time, short sold the second time, and back in the market for its real price at $232,000.
Wow.
Isn't that just incredible?
Yeah.
And leave it to me as a real estate agent to have that great story to share.
Yeah.
But it's like, it just shows.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened. And so, and the other thing too that I want people to know, and the reason that I always, when I sit down with a business owner, the first thing I do is just share my story, because everybody has a story, and it's okay. And everybody somehow, whether it's you personally, a family member, a good friend, was affected by what happened in those years with the real estate market and with businesses. So just, it's okay to tell your story and to make sure that you ask the right questions to get help. And once I started being honest and really talking about what was going on with us was when I started getting help.
Isn't that amazing?
You can't hide it. Don't.
Yeah, people, and so that brings into, so we're going to take a small break so we can go to the last segment of our show. So Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae Forbes with Forbes Realty Group, broker owner, and our guest today is Susie Smith with Legal Shield. And we'll see you around the corner. And good morning. Welcome back to Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. Hi, I'm Lynaae with Forbes Realty Group, and welcome you back to the studio with Susan Smith with Legal Shield. And just real quick, we were talking before we went to break about the honesty factor, and I think it's really important to understand that a lot of people were affected by this, and even my own family. I spent 5 years of fighting with my bank because they kept producing documents that weren't true. So the first mediation, which was hilarious, who was at the table was not who was on the paperwork.
Oh no.
And my husband's going, shh, shh. And I'm like, no. I said, aren't they, and we're not going to name names, but aren't they supposed to be here?
Right.
And so the mediator had to mark that little box, and the first mediation went away.
Huh.
And they couldn't foreclose because they couldn't even do the notice of default in the correct bank name.
Oh my goodness.
That's how bad this situation is.
Right.
And I think that's why I became an advocate for short sales, and why I fought so hard for my clients. Many times I went to the legal the department of HOA department of the banks, their legal department, to get these HOA liens paid so that my clients wouldn't get displaced. I still have a client who the HOA company foreclosed on them, and the loan is still in my client's name.
What?
And he can't.
The HOA company foreclosed on them?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like 2 days from closing the short sale.
Oh my goodness. That's awful.
Now, if we'd had some of the laws we have in place now, that would have never happened. But
Right.
I still get a phone call from this guy every once in a while telling me, it's still in my name, it's still in my name. And lucky for him, he went through a bankruptcy, so that's a deficiency. It's against the property, but it's still in his name.
Right. And that was the thing, too, that I didn't realize until kind of going through this. And because my husband and I were raised to pay our bills. We never had any debt before any of this happened. So it was really difficult for us to even think about bankruptcy and stuff. But now we didn't end up filing bankruptcy, but there's a huge timing to bankruptcy, and sometimes it's the answer and sometimes it's not, and it's okay.
I know.
And we would have, if that would have been the answer for us, we would have been okay with it because we were educated on what it meant. It didn't mean that we were bad people.
And
it would have just been what we needed to do.
Right.
So.
And I've actually had a couple of clients who've actually filed the bankruptcy just to get, so that we could go through the short sale process quicker.
Right.
Well, no, because if they do it after I do the short sale, they're not eligible for the bankruptcy.
Oh, so so there's a huge timing. That's the other thing.
It's all
with
timing.
Education.
So
and
education, getting them with the right attorney, getting them with the right. Okay.
Right.
So one of the things that I hope you can walk away from today when listening to this program is that what you need to look for in the people that you network with, you do business with, is who you can call and talk to. I'm an advocate for going and networking and learning, and I do not send out a lot of leads, but the leads that I do send out are strong. And they're usually for people that the business gets done. I don't just hand you, oh, here, Susie, here's 5 people, and you call them up and they go, who?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, isn't that just the most?
Yeah. That's just like a cold call.
You know, cold water on the face, that takes care of your credibility, their credibility. And I like to be a credible person. I want people to know that when I send them a piece of business, that it's a true piece of business. It's not just okay, I'm handing this to you so in hopes that you're going to send me business. I've actually had it the other way around. I've had people send me business, and it takes me a while to get back to them with business, but I always remember where I get my business.
Right.
And so that's an important factor for all of us. But you're a sweet person.
Oh,
it's
thank you.
great to always meet you out. Spotlight Senior Services is one of the events
places
we've been.
It's great networking. So I encourage everyone. I know a lot of times people feel like networking is maybe not the best use of their time. It really is a wonderful use of your time. Every person that I've sat down with has come because I've met them at some sort of networking event.
But you don't want to overdo the networking.
No, you have to work.
There's a few people that overdo the networking, and to the point where they overlap so many times. You're like, okay, you got to leave that group because it's kind of, why go to the same, have the same people in the same group.
You have to network on purpose.
With purpose.
With purpose, yes. And I had to learn that too, because I did kind of go the other way, and I was kind of trying to go to everything, and that can get overwhelming. And you can, so you go to a lot of things in the beginning, find the things that make sense to your business, and find the people, because it's kind of like you want to be around, you want to associate with the people that are like you and that you know, like, and trust. So once you find those little grooves, then you can kind of, and it's just consistency. People really like consistency. If you could, like with the Spotlight.
I'm always there.
Yeah, we're very consistent with that group.
And they move all over town, so it's like funny. So anyway, I just want to thank you today for joining us. Thank you, Susie, for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure having you in the studio with me today.
Absolutely.
And having you on the show. It's Real Estate Know-How with Lynaae. Lynaae with Forbes Realty Group. You can reach me after outside the show. You can find it on the website at 702-743-7797. Susie, what's the phone number for you if we want to get in touch with you?
My number is 702-340-6005.
Great. And I'd like to thank you all for coming with us today, and we'll see you next Tuesday.